300 million allocation in the current budget for the ICT integration in secondary schools focused on ICT service development and training. And as I said, the public-private partnerships and digital content development, those initiatives are also being championed by the ministries. The ministry has collaborated with Intel, Microsoft, USAID, the Clinton Global Initiative, the ACE Project, Nokia, Safaricom, UNICEF, Giga UNICEF partnerships, where almost 19,700 schools are connected and intend to be connected with 10 Mbps by 2030. What legislative and policy reforms are underway to establish robust TVET funding model and development fund? That's the last question. Chair, the following reforms are underway to establish a robust TVET funding model and development fund. One, the draft Technical and Vocational Education and Training Bill 2025 establishes the TVET Funding Board, which will be the body responsible for developing and implementing an appropriate TVET funding framework. Number two, the draft TVET financing policy provides guidelines for the establishment and management of income-generating units in TVET institutions, as well as management of grants. Some institutions so far have already established IGUs, which include automotive garages, driving schools, animal production units, and milk processing plants. The dual training policy, Chair, envisages the enforcement of the provisions of Section 55C, subsection 2B of the Industrial Training Amendment Act 2022 on the utilization of training levies. These are supposed to be used for funding the establishment and operationalization of TVET institutions across the country. And lastly, to enhance the public-private partnerships, the ministry is partnering with international agencies and development partners for targeted projects while maintaining a strategic approach to avoid over-reliance on external funding. On the last question, I would request each principal secretary to provide the status of budget implementation for financial year 2024-2025 for strategic interventions, if you allow. I submit, your Chair.
3 minutes to do that.
With the basic.
So we have it in form of a table. I don't know whether it's acceptable. We just submit the table or we just read. Yeah, we
can summarize in 3 minutes.
Okay.
It's already in.
Yeah.
Thank you. So for free primary education, the approved budget was 7,880,875,304 shillings. The exchequer release, we got 7,597,873,571. We disbursed the same amount. And so actual expenditure was the same amount. Remarks on the implementation status, 96% funding of the allocated funds have been disbursed. For the 3-day secondary school capitation, we got 56 billion. The approved budget was 56,619,483,728 shillings. The exchequer release.
56.
Come again?
54 or 56?
3-day
secondary. You can see 54.
3-day secondary school capitation. The approved budget was 54 billion.
Okay.
619,483,728. And then exchequer release was 54 billion 610,346,120. We disbursed the same amount, and the actual expenditure was also the same amount that we received in form of exchequer release. Then when it comes to junior school, the approved budget was 30 billion 443,483,760 shillings. And then the exchequer release we received at the ministry was 30 billion 442 million 911,756. And we released the same amount, we disbursed the same amount, and the same amount was actually what was the actual expenditure. For the low-cost boarding primary schools, we have around 426 schools across the whole country. The approved budget was 400 million. We received exchequer release of the same amount, 400 million, and we disbursed the same amount, so there was full disbursement there. Primary school infrastructure, 201 million. That's 201 million. And then we got the same release and disbursed the same amount, and that was actual expenditure also. Secondary school infrastructure for the financial year 24-25 was 1,194,500,000. And the second release...
Speed up, please. Quickly.
School feeding
Because
program,
we have
3.6 billion.
Please.
Okay, so maybe I can share the document. Yeah, you already have it. So that was the same. Thank you. So I think that's all.
That is the status, and I think it only related to basic department. So that is done. That's our submission on that issue.
We had asked for the list of institutions which received infrastructure fund for low cost funding. Is that coming?
Yes, that will
Are
be
we going
prepared.
is somebody's going to present the
Yes,
list?
it will be. I don't think it's ready today, but it will be done and sent.
When can we get it in the course of the day? Because it was one of the issues.
Chair.
Just a minute.
For the low-cost boarding,
Yes.
it will be available
And school feeding.
in the course of today. And school feeding, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you done, Minister of Education?
Yes, we are done.
So we now open the floor to the members, and you direct your questions to whichever state department. Let's start with Mulemba. I can see he came. Then we come to the front.
Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you.
On school funding, capitation, the population we are dealing with in 2025 is 3,280,182 students. Honorable Chair, first term expectation is supposed to be 50%. And the schools received 8,818 per learner. They were supposed to receive 11,122 per learner. The deficit is 2,304. In second term, Honorable Chair, the expectation for 30% per learner is 6,673, but the schools received 3,471. The balance is 3,202. Therefore, the minister should be able to explain when he says he has disbursed all the monies to school, that indeed all the monies are disbursed. In terms of the totals, what has been disbursed?
We limit ourselves to 2 questions.
But this is just the first question. Let me finish.
It's long. You finished that one.
I've jumped that bit, so let me go to the next one. To know the next one, but the same thing, school on capitation. Now, still on this capitation, in the second term, it's the longest, Honorable Chair, 14 weeks. The dispersal was 3,471 out of 6,673, which is supposed to be there. Chair, the trend has been as follows in second term, which is supposed to be 30%. That in 2022, instead of disbursing the 6,000 I've mentioned, they disbursed 4,200. In 2023, they disbursed 4,100. In 2024, they disbursed 4,500. This year, Honorable Chair, they disbursed 3,471. It's the lowest ever disbursed since this model began. But secondly, there's something happening between the Treasury and the Finance Ministry, and the Education Ministry. Though they are very close, but something is happening in between there. The monies are not reaching the school. Honorable Chair, I sat on the Mwiria Commission, which was set up by the President Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta. When we created this model, we created a 22,000 per student for operations. We never created a 5,000 or 3,900, which is being deducted from these monies before it goes to schools. Honorable Chair, what is happening currently is that of the monies disbursed to schools, the ministry, for instance, in 2021, retained 1,543. In 2022, it retained 1,752. So the monies that reached the school per student, you can look in my eyes, was only 10,669. And that following year, 11,099. This year, the monies that are reaching the school are far much less than what the Mwiria Commission expected. The school system will collapse. Mwiria Commission never envisaged that out of the 20, we would deduct and send 10,000 for operations. Unless something happens, the school system will collapse. Minister for Finance says he has disbursed all the money. Could the Minister for Education say, why are you retaining the monies and sending 10,000 per student every year? Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Can we now move to the members of the committee? We start with Emase. We go in that manner, like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I'll start on the status of implementation, budget implementation 24-25. If you look at that table, primary school infrastructure, secondary school infrastructure, the remarks are full disbursement of allocated funds to schools. And Chair, as early as yesterday, I just arrived from my constituency, and I know that speaks for all other constituencies. Schools have not received money for infrastructure. So if the Ministry of Finance has released money for infrastructure, then can the Minister of Education tell us why the money has not reached the respective schools? My second question, Chair, is on equity. You've told us the figures that have been allocated for infrastructure. And even for the current financial year, you're targeting 1,056 facilities for secondary schools and the other figures for primary schools. But our concern as representatives of the people, how equitable are you distributing these monies? Because we know of schools in serious, deplorable conditions, and the ministry has left the responsibility of providing infrastructure largely to NGCDF, which has limited resources to cover all these schools. So as a committee chair, we would want to see the list of all schools benefiting from infrastructure development funds. How much is going to each schools, and in where are those specific schools? And if possible, the committee should be able to sample and visit a number of those schools, because it is a concern. We have schools where a classroom is divided into two, and the children are facing opposite directions. How can a teacher impart any knowledge in such conditions? Yet, huge figures have been allocated to certain specific schools in specific regions, including allocating resources to ghost schools that do not exist. And there is a question on that, and Chair, I want to request that this committee does visit all those ghost schools. We see where that money is going to. We need a response from the Minister for Education on that.
Makela?
It was here. You said we go like this.
You came early. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry. Thank you, Chair. Chair, I want to commend the Minister for Treasury for the report that he has given us. Equally, I want to commend the Minister for Education. But we have serious concerns on what they have presented, especially on the financing of universities, where the National Treasury is telling us that it is urging the MDAs within the education sector to continue implementation of the recommendations put forth by the Presidential Working Party. Is the Minister aware that this House or this committee does not recognize the Presidential Working Party report, because we had asked for it for a long time, so that we can adopt, so that the House can also make it legal. So it's a document which is not adopted in this House. So we cannot be referring to a document which is not legal. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Number one, on this implementation of budget, there is this project called SEKIP. It says the project received 99.6% of funding of all of allocated funds. Madam Chair, all the SEKIP projects, for example, in Baringo North and other counties in Kenya, stalled. And yet, it is indicated that they received all the funds. Why is the project stalling? And where is the balance? Secondly, Chair, is that a quick one, because I want to rush through them, is the effectiveness of chemists. Many schools are not receiving capitation equivalent to the number of students in their schools because of chemists or NEMIS. It's a big challenge, so that schools are operating on deficit. Many students who are in those schools are not getting what they are supposed to get. The other one, Chair, is that a quick one is the TVET institutions in Kenya are almost on a verge of collapse because of lack of capitation, or about 12.5 billion shillings. If we want to transform Kenya, we enhance TVET institutions to get the necessary capitation so that we'll be able to operate optimally and bring the people that will change the economic matrix of our country. There is a fear, Madam Chair, of securitization. I have seen something here that HELP wants securitization of, in their presentation that came to before this committee, they want 3 shillings in every VAT. Minister for Finance, if we go this way of securitization of every, or setting a cap for every institution, we set 7 shillings and you see how it is going in roads. Now HELP wants 3 shillings for VAT. Another group will want another certain percentage for PE. Another one will come for other percentages of collection of revenue. This will be a dangerous trend for our country, and we may not have a budget to implement for projects that are there. How far is the matching of university fund and HELP? Because they have a lot of duplication. When we visited them, it's almost doing the same things. How that can we match these institutions so that we have value for money for our country? I think that is my take.
Thank you. Thank you. I also have 2 questions. One is on special needs. How do you recruit teachers for special schools, schools for special needs students? Because I've seen that in some schools, the teachers are not trained to handle special needs. There are teachers who teach in normal schools, but they're posted in special needs schools. Are you aware that that is going on and that you are posting wrong teachers to special schools? My second question is, There is that the CS has represented the writing off of certain debts, especially at the university level, that historic debts ought to be written off. There are lecturers who have not been paid for a long time. They've been on part-time basis. These part-timers have not been paid for a year or for quite a long time. I know a lot of them. Are you going to write off the debts, and will they be paid for what they have worked for? Professor, allow Rebecca to then you take it up, please.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair. Chair, looking at the presentations of the two CSs, I'm actually very proud of the fact that the 76,000 teachers have been recruited so far. You're doing very well on that side. However, as representatives of the people, Chair, I do not know who is not speaking the truth. Because when CSs tell us here that they have done 50% and 30%, and the actuals on the ground are two different things, then, Chair, we are left to doubt what is being said here. Chair, why is it difficult for the National Treasury to give sufficient resources equivalent to capitation amount provided in the policy documents, or just tell us that it's not possible to implement the policy documents? Chair, because we do appropriate money as per their presentations, but then when it comes to allocating these funds do not reach the schools as per the documents. So what is happening, Chair? Thank you.
Professor, then we go to Mau and Omero, and then Gesairo, Mheshimiwa Gesairo.
Thank you, Chair. I think it is good today that we have both the CS from Treasury and from the Ministry of Education, because all along we've been dealing with one, and every time one comes, throws stones to the other, and whenever another one is not there, the other one throws stones to the other. So at least now we have both of them. Question one is that let me use example of my constituency because it caters everywhere. It's an example. The secondary schools have received 7,888 per student from January up to now. The schools, the students are up in arms. The 8 teachers are playing cat and mouse because they don't know what to do in the school because suppliers are up in their arms. Everyone is up in their arms. So can the ministry now tell us where that money is? Where, if they have dispensed 50%, where is that money? Who is holding that money? Can we get the answer today? And secondly, Madam Chair, the issue of infrastructure and the building of laboratories and classrooms. How can they be constructing classrooms, empty classrooms, with no equipment, with no furniture? Most of the schools, they just have the building, and they are now getting stones and bough and wood to put them so that the students can sit on them. Can they budget for the classroom and the necessary equipment? And finally, on the examinations, is the government planning to do away with the examination waiver policy?
Thank you. Just before we go to the two honorable members, CS, I'd asked for the list of the institution which benefited from infrastructure on low cost boarding. Now, we would like to know, as you do that, as you bring the list, please let us know how are the benefiting areas identified. And do you do periodic reviews? And then on the same issue, how much do you pay per learner?
Yeah, sorry, I forgot something. The issue of the pending bills for private universities. Can the ministry provide for us a list of all the students who benefited from government funding
in private universities so that we know who we are funding. Because we have asked that list. This is the second year running, but there is no list which we have been given for private universities.
Remember, we have the CS education for much longer, so we should make sure that we ask CS Mbadi also the questions. Yeah, but continue, please. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's a pleasure that we have the two CSs appearing today. I wish to seek some clarification on the matter of school infrastructure. CS Mbadi has talked about it. CS Ogambo has equally talked about it. And CS Ogambo, I think I must say from the onset, I think we have a challenge in your office with regard to school infrastructure. I want to say it clearly that as a committee, we oversight your State Department, rather we oversight your ministry, and support towards TVET appears transparent. Support towards higher education appears transparent, but there's a very gray or dark area with regard to support towards the basic education. In your presentation, you did indicate that this committee did approve a budget of 1.395 billion towards school infrastructure. This committee, I believe Bunge, through the budget office, did provide a certificate that indicated the areas that were supposed to be supported. But you are aware, on a CS, that your ministry went ahead and superimposed, for lack of a better word, names of beneficiary schools which were not initially, did not come from this Bunge. But as CS, we are aware about how schools have dilapidated infrastructure across this country. But the list that your office has delayed to submit because it has issues, we have cases whereby ghost schools have received money that were never approved by this department, by this Bunge. We have schools that have received as much as 50 million Kenya shillings that never came through this committee. For example, we talk about Bomet High School, received 50 million. Bomet High School does not exist, but you send this money through Tenwek. I wish to know, how did you give Bomet High School 50 million when we have other schools that could have received that funding? We have Kamoret High School that received 50 million in your list of 1.39 billion. It never came from this office, or rather from this committee. Yet, this money is supposed to pass through some escrow school known as St. Patrick's. We have a school, for example, like Olboyo Boys that got 20 million. Olboyo Girls gets 20 million. But as CS, let it be known to you that you oversight a ministry that is corrupt and full of cartels. You oversight a ministry that has got people that believe that only specific regions should be funded while others are left hanging. What we are aware about Bwana CS, we have a challenge with the PS was there. But unfortunately, we have a serious cartel in the PS who has come in, because some of these things are orchestrated by none other than your accounting officer. Madam Chair, the reason why the CS has not been able to table the figures is because of these anomalies that are existing in his presentation. The CS is buying time. The CS is a good man, but is surrounded by people who have no integrity. The CS is a great man, surrounded by people who have been stealing from the government. And Chair, I wish the CS to come out clear. CS Mbadi did disperse the funds for the Ministry of Treasury, but that money landed in this Ministry of Education and got cooked up in other things. So can the CS come out clear and put it clear in black and white? What are you doing to ensure there's equity, there's fairness, and there's transparency and accountability in how public funds are disbursed to schools? But as CS, with me here have a list which you have refused to put before this table, but Chair, I'll be able to table that. I'll be tabling before this committee and in Bunge a list of those schools that your ministry has been able to fund that not pass through this committee. Number two.
Please, order, please. Order. Floor. Order, please. Let him finish.
Chair, what I'm speaking is not anything that it should be put to the media, Chair, and I'll be able to supply the list so that the ministry people can know that we have thieves who are stealing money in the ministry meant for schools. Chair, there's no logic why we should pump money in a Maram Road. Let's say we have distribution in this country whereby money has been put on Maram roads of 10 million, Chair. Yet it is so difficult to provide 2 million shillings for a school that is so dilapidated when kids are learning, kids are sitting on stones, kids are sitting on logs in schools. Yet we can afford to change this money, Chair, and support things that not really add value to this country.
Okay, thank you.
Number two, Chair, that was my first question.
Your question is long.
Yeah, it is long because...
Allow him to speak. Allow him to speak.
Chair, I speak this because let it be known that we are aware of what is happening, Chair. We have been silent for too long. This committee has been approving budgets, but these budgets are changed. Time has come that that should stop. CS Mbadi, you're a good guy, a good man, and a professional. Mbadi and I are members of the same profession, Bwana Chair. And I think as an expert who went to the ministry to try and bring some sanity, we may have changed the top. But beneath him, we have issues. Beneath him, we are cartels that wish to know how CS Mbadi is moving in to ensure that some of your officers can actually be accountable and be truthful to the people of Kenya. We have a challenge, CS Mbadi. We have a challenge, including your peers. I have nothing to lose here, including your peers.
Yes,
we have a challenge. We have a challenge. Here, let me speak it because I'm speaking on behalf of many people.
Let's not accuse people who cannot defend themselves here.
Chair,
no, let the members speak.
Orero, please, order.
Yes, I think, Chair, I've been in this committee for far too long, and I know too much that some maybe may not be aware about. Number two, CS Mbadi, during budget preparations, your office has been diligent enough to send an officer to represent your ministry whenever we have budgets. But that officer who comes from your ministry to stand in is always clueless. The officer you send appears not to know what's supposed to do, Bwana Chair, Bwana CS Mbadi. One time we sent him away. He came back this year and he had not improved. I wish to know, honestly, do you really support your technical staff who are supposed not to support the State Department? Because the officers you sent to this committee, sometimes one wonders where they came from. Thank you.
Let's allow...
It's me. It goes
no.
this.
We're allowing Gesairo. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Gesairo first, please.
Thank you, Chair. CS Treasury, you did say that you've provided for 2.34 billion to have 20,000 intern teachers recruited in 2026. I just want to know whether you've also provided funds to confirm the current interns, because, and thank you, because by sign language you've told me you've not. CS, you are aware that your colleague CS was taken to court and the ministry and TSC for extending internship beyond 1 year. The current contract with the interns out there is for 1 year. Therefore, if we do not provide for those funds, we'll be in breach of the law. And therefore, and we need to describe exactly whether internship is proper employment or just a stopgap measure towards employment. What plans do you have for the interns who are currently serving, whose internship contract ends December this year? For the capitation, for over 5 years, you've never met the 22,000 that's provided for. Why always come to this committee telling us that you've provided for 22,000, yet knowing very well that you've never been able, you are not able? Why not use the average of the figures that you disburse and tell the schools that the money allocated to you is 10,000, so they're able to plan? Because the ministries, both Treasury and Education, are jointly participating in the collapse of the education sector. Lastly, I would like to, or before that, the private university debt that you owe. Are you aware that a number of students in the private universities who are placed there under government sponsorship have been forced to drop out because the universities, knowing that the government is not paying, have gone to credit the students' accounts in their portals? So a student who thought is supposed to pay 20,000 finds in their portal a bill of 200,000, and most of them have been forced to drop out. A good example is students of nursing, Mount Kenya University. A number of them have dropped out. Lastly, CS education. What my colleague has said is a matter that needs to be interrogated deeply. It is not hearsay. It's not rumors. The ministry is disbursing funds to non-existent schools, and in a very inequitable way when it comes to the spread of this country. We are having schools that don't exist receiving money for infrastructure. Therefore, it means when it goes to capitation, the same schools again will receive money for students who do not exist. You are running a ministry that should be rebranded to be called a cartel. And we can't sit here every time asking for details, and it is always postponed. Can we have the details sought for? And can you give us the time frame under which this information will be given to the public? We cannot have a government that keeps telling us that the fiscal space is constrained, there is no money, but the activities on Fridays in this country show us the exact opposite. It's our priorities that are misplaced. That is what we need to fix. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I am a very, very sad person here today because I was a teacher for a very long time. And when I see how we are being taken like merry-go-round in this house, it is very saddening. The CS of Education has said that they have been trying to make sure that the budgeted allocation of 22,244 per student is released. But for the last 7 years, it has never been released as 22,000. The last time we were doing the budget policy statement, I asked the PS whether we should budget for 22 or 17. I'd initially agreed that the government cannot meet the 22 and therefore we budget for 17. But when we came to the budget estimates, we again found that he had put 22,000 in the budget estimates. Now, where is this money going? And if it is not reaching schools, then why can't the ministry be bold and tell the schools that they should not budget for 22,000 and they budget either of 17 or 15,000? Because our schools are closing down. A country without schools cannot run. And now we are here with the Ministry of Education. First, where is your PS? Why would you come here without an accounting officer of the ministry? Because he is where these blames fall. When the Treasury has released the funds and comes to the PS, then he gives the money to schools which does not exist. the cartel in the ministry. He should be here to explain to the Kenyans, because this is a public office. Where is this? Where is the PS of the Treasury? Where is the PS of the Ministry of Education? I can see the PS of TVET is here. We cannot have PS who are bigger than the CSs in this country. If you cannot support the Ministry of Education, if our kids cannot go to school, then why are we here? Now, second question. The new funding model, which is also sometimes student-centered model. We went to the HELP, we went to the university funding. They told us that this is going to change the lives of the students in the university. The DUC, the differentiated unit cost, has now been removed. But our first-year students and second-year students have not been funded. This year, they are reporting in September. The variables and the parameters used in the new funding model are defective. They are defective because people who are able can be found to be in the band 1. And those who are unable are found in the band 5. When the formula used in the new funding model was brought to us, I took my case, my own son, who is in the university, and filled, and we found out that he was now in band 3. And I can pay the fees. Why would my child be put in band 3 and I'm able to pay the fees? It means that the weighted units put on these variables are defective. So as we are going now to admit the university students in first year, can you tell us whether these new funding models, you have now brought in the variables which are not defective and the parameters used are going to serve our Kenyans? Thank you.
Our CS, the main testing instrument. You need to relook at the main testing instrument here. Thank you. We have the friends of the committee who are here. Masara, Aundo. So we'll start with Honorable Masara. Pardon? Okay. Mheshimiwa needs to leave. He had actually indicated that he wants to be out before 12. So do we allow him to respond? Because we are still here with the CS Education. The members here who are not members of the Education Committee actually have specific questions that they need addressed by the CS Education. Go ahead, CS.
Thank you. Chair, I want to just deal with questions that maybe are directed to the Treasury, and I know the line minister is even more competent to deal with almost everything, including the funding, because he's the one who asks or requests for the funding. But let me just touch on some of these issues that have been raised. First, let me start with where is my PS? Chair, the invite was specifically to the CS, and I decided to accompany myself with the technical team from my ministry, and I feel I'm competent enough without my PS to address the issues that are raised. So I didn't see the need to involve my PS here because he had other assignments also to carry out. So it was not that my PS has ignored coming. He was not invited, and I equally didn't invite him. The questions raised by Honorable Mboko Mlemba, just actually one that I want to deal with. The inconsistency between the expectations and the budget. You see, Chair, I want to be very candid here. The full amount that is budgeted is released. Maybe with small discrepancy on one budget line. I need to check why we paid less, because there's a figure there of about 97%. But we release the full amount. And by the way, we release money to the ministry for capitation way early. I have just sampled, and I've seen for term 1, JSS we released on 20th of January. 2025. That's 50% of the budget. And I wanted to really speak to that because I think that is what is bringing a lot of contention. We released the money for the FPE also on 20th of January. The 3-day secondary school education capitation, 50%, was released in 2 tranches. So we first released part of the 50% on January 28th, and the remaining the half we released on 12th of March. So that is the only one where we released half the allocation for term 1. For term 2, we released funds on 19th of May, and yet the term started in May. So for term 2 is 30%. Yeah. Now, the inconsistency comes about because of the amount we provide is less than the expectation. That is the truth. If
yes,
you take...
CS, just clarify.
Yes.
You have released 80%. 50 plus 30.
For 2025?
Yes.
Yes.
80%.
Yes.
So 80% of 22,000 is how much?
No, that is what I want to clarify. It is 80% of the budget. The budget cannot support the 22,000 shillings. And, Honorable Chair, you know it is Parliament that passes the budget. And you can take the figures and calculate. And I say, you see, the problem is we live a lie. Let me put it this way, and I've been around here. President Kibaki started the free primary education. Then President Uhuru, actually Kibaki never attempted free secondary education. President Uhuru came with the subsidized. It was supposed to be subsidized secondary education. Then somehow he escalated it to free. We don't have the capacity as at now to finance free primary, free secondary. And I will explain to you. If you check our debt repayment 5 years ago, it was very low. Today,
yes,
our...
1 minute, please.
I'm following Honorable and CS Mbadi with my 3rd year, and he has done very well. For the first time, and press, I hope you're following, we've been told 50% has been released in full, and that 30% has been released in full. I would wish he concentrates on that without even going to the debts. If we are not funding, you have not released 80% of the 22,000 to be specific, 244.
Yeah.
So you have released 80% of what? This conversation will continue very well. We are not against anyone. Thank you so much.
Yes, Madam Chair. I write on it. Because the government has been lying, why can't you say 80% of 16,000 or 80% of 17,000? Because the amount that you have been providing, if you hand up what you are giving to an individual child, is how much? It is better you say that you are able to provide 17,000 and not to use 22,000 as reference point, because there is no time that you have attained that amount. So give the Kenyans the right figures.
Chair, just on the same, when the CS says that the money is not enough for expectation, what is the difference between expectation and a budget? And who is talking about this expectation? Is it not about the Kenyan government, or it is the people's expectation?
Yeah, just let me
proceed.
Let me put it into perspective. Actually, I borrowed the words of Honorable Mboko Mlemba. He's asked me specifically the inconsistency between the expectation and the budget. And that is what I'm addressing. And by the way, let us not live a lie. The budget we provide cannot give 22,000 to each child. In Kenya, it is not possible. It is less.
Yeah, then allow schools to charge the difference.
Please, Orero,
can
order,
I just
please.
answer? Because
Orero, order, please.
Chair,
Okay, go ahead. Proceed, CS.
My friend Honorable Borero, you can't get an answer from me, which I don't have. Let me give you the answer. The answer is this, that because of the financial pressures in this country, we are under-providing for the per capita allocation per child in Kenya. If you take all the children in Kenya who are in high school, senior secondary school, if you take all of them and divide with our budget, which we give them, it is less than 22,000 shillings. That is what I'm saying. Yet, what we have provided is the full budgetary allocation. What I'm trying to say is that Treasury has never failed to release the money that is in the budget. And by the way, the budget is provided by National Assembly. It's not the National Treasury.
Chair.
So let me just put it this way. Chair, if I'm allowed to answer, I will have answered the question.
Chair,
you see,
maybe I can intervene something. CPM,
can I just finish
just
this?
Just a minute before you finish. Chair, there's something, CS, with all due respect, you know, CPA Mbadi is very sharp in playing with figures. I'd like you to come direct, CPA Mbadi, and tell us, FCPA, sorry. This, we talked about 22,244. How much had been allocated? Because you talk about 50%, 30% of the budget, but they're not saying this budget. For the sake of the Kenyan who is watching and following, tell us the budget is 16,000, then you've given 50%. Rather than saying the budget, because somebody in Turkana does not know the budget. Somebody in Luanda, where I come from, does not know that budget, but you know the budget. Can you tell us and tell Kenyans what is the budget, which was approved by this committee, and how much of it have you given out? Thank you.
You see, like for example, the free, the senior school is supposed to get about 54 billion. If you get 80%, you'll find about 43 billion. So, if you calculate the total budget for the year, and honorable members, I wish it is what we could address. If you look at the total budget for the year and you divide by the number of students we have in this country, instead of 22,000, we are funding up to about 16,900 shillings. So, but if you look at the budget, now what is it that I've said there which requires? I've just worked the figures. And unless you want me to lie to this committee, I don't want to mislead the committee. Yeah, because you are the committee which looks at the budget.
Chair, let's protect the minister.
Yeah, allow me just to present the figures. You may agree with me or you may disagree, but those are the facts.
Go on, please.
So that we don't have...
So what I was saying as 80% is the total quantum budget that we have allocated. And so we release 50% of it. Then we release 30% of it. Then we release 20% of it. As to whether it is enough for all the children in this country, it is not. If we work with 22,000 per child for senior secondary school and the 15,000 per child for the junior secondary school, and we work with 1,400 plus per child for free primary education, you will get higher figures than what is in the budget. That is what I'm trying to say. And I gave an example of the senior school that instead of supporting 22,000, we support about 17,000. And that is why you will hear teachers, head teachers, principals saying that the government owes them money. And recently I said that you can't claim that the government owes you money when the budget that was provided for that year was disbursed in full. The thing is that we have been underfunding. And the reason I moved forward to talk about what I was saying, which Honorable Mboko was contesting. I wanted to demonstrate to you the reasons why the government is finding it difficult to finance each child at 22,000, in junior school at 15,000, and in primary at 1,400, because we have other competing needs for funds. Hence, that underfunding. The competing needs, I started with the debt repayment. The reason why probably 5 years or 7 years ago we were able to meet the requirements, apart from the fact that we adopted a free secondary education, was also because that time the debt repayment was low. Now the debt repayment is high, and it is said everywhere, putting a strain on our resources, hence impairing our ability to meet it. But we are struggling as a government to make sure that we don't unduly underfund education. So that is what I was explaining, and you can use that information that we are not funding education as it should be funded. We are facing those challenges.
My issue, my problem
Chair.
is that in your submission, you should have acknowledged. You were telling us it's 22, it is this much. Why did you not acknowledge that you are aware? Put a rider. Both of you did not do that. You should have been honest with us and tell us, yes, it is 22, but then we'd know that you're also aware that there is a challenge. But when you continue as if it is actually 22, and if we didn't interrogate, we'd have left the room thinking it's 22. Thank you.
Wasn't that part of the budget, the 22?
Yeah.
The 22 was in the budget.
Madam Chair, I have the floor. Then, Honorable CS Education and National Treasury, why then don't you review the policy so that we are not living a lie and we say, let's get an average for the last 3 financial years. How much is tenable? How much can we afford? So that for purposes of planning, for purposes of predictability, so that parents are advised accordingly, we know that what government can afford is 16,000 or 17,000. So that now the rest can be, other avenues, alternatives can be explored as to how to fill the gap,
Chair,
to be able to provide
Chair,
education.
just give me 1 minute. For purposes of sobriety, I think, Madam Chair, the naked truth that CS Mbadi has told us should actually have been the beginning of things. For one, CS Mbadi and the Minister for Education, and even us in Parliament, once Parliament approves the budget, then the Minister of Education does a circular to the teachers of Kenya and the minister and everyone else that the capitation for children of Kenya is no longer 22 because Parliament has passed 16,900.
Yes.
So it is now our business again, Madam Chair, that this is the dawning reality, that we now go back as members of Parliament and in the next supplementary budget, bridge the gap between 16,900 to 22,000 shillings so that you issue a circular that is proper rather than issuing a circular of 22 and it is less.
Chair, but the policy document states 22,000. That is what we approved. So, you know, getting other issues is a non-issue here, Chair.
Chair.
Because we should have been told that this policy document is not working. Yeah, simple.
Chair, I will be very sober in the last question. Almost similar to that. Did we approve 22, 244 per learner, or did we approve the 16 which you have spoken about? And then secondly, to the CS education. And kudos to Honorable Mbadi. He has indicated the money is 16. But the CS education, I want to tell you, CS Mbadi, your brother takes to schools 10,000. Already it's small. Why are you deducting money for infrastructure, 5,000? You know, I have all the notes here. Why are you deducting another 1,750? So that even from the 16, what is going to school is 10. Let me tell you this. In 2008, because I sat in the Muiria Commission, the money that went to school in 2008, if I may be very specific, was higher than what you have sent in schools last year. In 2008, what Kibaki sent to school was 10,642. In last year, you sent 10,422. It can't work.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I'm Peter Masara, MP for Sona West. There was a question I raised sometimes back in February, of which part of it is what you are discussing. I've seen the response given, but there's an omission on the ECD part. which I've not seen the written submission. Chair, on the issue of capitation, which was part of my question, I think the ministry is not very honest. I've done my own research. Their main problem is the number of students in our schools and the statistics they have at the ministry are totally different. That's why they get a big problem. There are schools with a population of 1,000 and they are being funded with 400 or 500 students. So with the gap of the student which are not funded is a half, and even this half is not fully funded. That's why our schools are not fully operationalized. So my humble submission, Chair, based on what I've read concerning the response, it's not satisfactory. Maybe they didn't have the data, so they need to give the Kenyans and the Parliament, they need to guide the Parliament, because Parliament do not have figures. We get figures from the ministry. We don't have officers at the sub-county level to collect for us data of number of students who are supposed to be funded. Chair, if we don't solve this problem now, before the next financial year, schools are going to close. Reason why I'm saying this, we talk of pending bills, but the pending bill for high schools and primary school is not captured, because these schools have debts which they have not paid to their suppliers based on the circular they were given. They were supposed to get 22 and they are not getting. Therefore, some truth need to be told by the ministry so that we can move forward.
CS, I think, can we allow the CS to conclude his response?
Chair, actually, there's really little to add on to that issue. I've given the answer, the reason why there's discrepancy between what actually goes to the school vis-a-vis, the entire budget is disbursed, but the number of children are more. So it means if you take per capita or the per child allocation and you multiply by the number of children, you will get a higher figure, which is not in the budget. Secondly, policy informs the budget. And so we try as much as possible to meet. So, Chair, we try as much as possible to meet the provisions of the policy. Now, as to what we need to do to be able to fund education in this country properly, I want to just say something, and it may rattle the honorable members, but that is the truth. That these monies that we have all over the place, we could consolidate them. For example, if you give me back NGCDF, give me 40% that you have allocated to bursaries, give it back to me. It is going to be over 20 billion, 22. Give it back to me.
It is going to disappear to the ministry.
I added to capitation.
No, it will disappear to the ministry.
We are looking for solution.
Order.
We
have seen it before. We have seen it before.
Honorable Orero.
No, we know what happens because we are there.
That's why you are funding most schools.
You know, what we could do is give it back to me. Then we look for ways of making sure that we finance the children of Kenya without any school fee being paid. Just give it back to me. And I add it to the capitation. That's what I'm requesting.
Not through the ministry.
Now let me answer the other issues. I think the others were for my colleague, for Imase. Why has the funds infrastructure not reached schools? I want to say again.
Let's allow him to go through and then we'll just come back.
Let me just move quickly. I think my colleague will answer the rest, if you allow me. On why the funds have not reached the schools, I think the CS Education will address us. Funding universities, Presidential Working Party, am I aware that the committee does not recognize? I am not. Actually, if there is a problem with it, with the report, it has not been made aware to me. So not the moment
not a problem.
It's not the problem with the committee. What the member said, that report has never been tabled in Parliament. It has never been adopted by Parliament. Therefore, it cannot be used in any parliamentary proceeding.
Okay. So I'm not aware that there was such a problem. Now, I wanted just to pick on securitization, because there's been a lot of misreporting around the securitization, and it is not just on education. You see, we must think of innovative ways of financing our expenditure in this country. Expenditure world over of a country is funded through two methods: on budget and off budget. It is not unique to Kenya. It is everywhere. You even go to Europe, you will find it. And off budgets, you can either do a PPP model, or you can do a securitization model. Now, securitization is not a loan. I have heard some of us speak to it like it is a loan. What happens with securitization, and as an accountant, I will speak to you with authority, it is selling a right on an asset. It is a future receivable being discounted to the present value. So what we are saying is this. For example, the sports fund. Over the years, we have had sports fund in this country. But what is it doing? Is there value for money for it? You do small, you allocate 50 million in some field, in some school somewhere, because you have influence to get that sport fund. Does it add value in our economy? Since from 1987, we have never developed any stadium in this country of international standard. Yet we have sports fund. We are receiving it every year. We are receiving it every month. What we are saying is, apart from Nyayo and Moi International Sports Center Kasarani, developed during Nyayo era, scandalized as people, as Kenyans scandalized that regime. It is the only regime or a government that developed two sports stadia, which we still have since independence. Now, we are saying that this government must develop another one, hence the Talanta study. But how do we do it? Instead of using this money that we receive out of sports fund, which you need about 10 years to accumulate to do a meaningful stadium, why don't we discount it? It is discounting an asset. And I think many people, including another friend of mine who keeps talking about this thing, who is not an accountant, does not understand what a receivable is, a future asset is, how you discount it. That it can only come for tutorial from me. Now, I want to put it very clearly. It is the most innovative way of prudently using resources that otherwise would be wasted in meaningless projects that don't add value to the country. So that is securitization. I am not saying that we have already approved it. By the way, they will not, the Ministry of Education will not implement it until that their thinking is put to the National Treasury and at Attorney General for proper analysis and assessment, and as they sell that right to a special purpose vehicle. And by the way, let me add this. This is not a loan. I want to repeat again. There is no risk. There is no risk to the country. We sell the risk. We sell the risk to a special purpose vehicle. And the interest rate, now listen to this, Chair, allow me to just mention this, because this has been contentious. Look, some people are telling us, why don't you just go the conventional way and borrow? Today, if you go to the market to borrow money, bonds in the international market, you will not pay less than 11-12%. Domestically, a bond, we are issuing an infrastructure bond of 15 years and 17 years next month at 12.5 and 12.9 interest rate. This specific one, because it is selling of an asset, we are only paying 7.96% interest. So those who are telling us, if you really understand financials, to go and borrow money the conventional way, you are pushing us to a more expensive debt. And these are the same people who made decisions from 2014 to now
and put us in expensive debts. I am telling them that that is not the route I want to take. I want to go for a cheaper loan, a cheaper funding, a cheaper facility with the same result in terms of finances, but we pay less. Now let me move quickly. I think I've addressed the issue of securitization. Whether internship is a proper employment. Now, I want to agree with the honorable member that in this financial year, and it was you, Chair, who asked, we have not provided money to convert the 20,000 to permanent and pensionable, but we have provided money for additional interns. But I mentioned when I was presenting that His Excellency the President has already pronounced himself that he would want us to recruit more teachers by January. It is my duty, as what I love calling myself, the Chancellor of the Exchequer of Kenya, who is actually working for the Cabinet and the President and the people of Kenya to try and make sure that the 5.4 billion that would be required to convert, that we get it. How I am going to get it, I will innovatively make that proposal to the National Assembly at the appropriate time, and you will approve or disapprove.
So, Chancellor, are you confirming that the current interns will be confirmed and there will be no extension of the internship?
You know, yes, actually my colleague is enriching my response here, that even last year we confirmed the interns, and there was no provision initially, but we got the provision. We are going to add 46,000 that time. This time it is 24,000 that the President has spoken about, but there's 20,000 interns, so maybe 4 would be additional out of the 20, above the 20. We will make sure that that is done, because once the President pronounces himself, that he speaks for the government, and after consultation within the government. Why not tell the student how much is available? I think I addressed that answer of that issue. Private university debts.
Yeah. The CS did not address the issue of policy vis-a-vis what you've allocated now. Because, Chair, we spoke of 22,244, which was approved for capitation. But you've indicated here that you've only allocated 16,000. Chair, we now need to know what we approved as Parliament as the 22,000 vis-a-vis what now the ministry is allocating. Because, Chair, we cannot keep on talking about policies, because the CS has said, which I respect you, CS, because you know you are an expert in that area. We have said policy informs budget, and we have done the policy. It is 22,244 per student. You've never met this. Why then don't you come back to Parliament, tell us this money is not possible, tell the parents how they are going to address this issue of shortage, because schools cannot run with that 16,000. Thank you.
You know, policy, I actually answered that. I said policy informs budgets, but at times you may not actualize a policy if you don't have the money. And that is why I was saying this is a policy that we cannot discard. It has to remain. We must look for ways of funding it. That's why I was asking that you give me back.
Chair, that has been my noise, but that's why I'm still sitting here.
Yes.
So did we pass a budget of 22,244 per student, or we passed 16? That's all I did as an answer.
You know, Honorable Mboko, I don't know how you want me to address this, but I said, if you look at the budget that you passed, it cannot support 22,000.
Thank you.
So that is the short answer to that. Now, private universities' debts.
Let's allow him, first of all, to go through it, because
I think some of the questions that are coming, my colleague will... Actually, my colleague will just speak my language.
For education.
Because we are the same government.
CS continue.
So let me just finish.
CS can
then I can, respectfully, leave my colleague to address.
Proceed.
Yes. On private university debts and students dropping out, it is a problem. It is a challenge. And I will tell you that worse, as I mentioned, is that from 2016 to 2023,
we educated our children in private schools almost for free. We gave a promise to private universities, which we have never. I am having a pile of those debts now. It is stress on the National Treasury and the Ministry to pay. So we are looking for ways of paying it, but these are debts that are accumulated over the years. Writing off debts. Writing off debts by universities, again, I will say, the law is clear. There will be a proposal to the National Treasury for the write-off. If it is 1% of the budget, I will approve the write-off if I'm convinced. If it is beyond that, the law says I have to take it to the cabinet for approval. Rebecca, Honorable Tonke, why is it difficult for the National Treasury to give the amount recommended? I think I've addressed that. It's difficult because we don't have the money. That is it. What is in the budget is insufficient. Labs constructed without equipment, I think my colleague will address that. Not disbursing all per student is the same question. Examination fees. Examination fees has also raised a lot of heat in the country because we left that budget line without any allocation when we proposed the budget to Parliament. Yes, you have put money there. Is it 5.9 billion? 5.9 billion. You know, we had a challenge with this. There were two issues that concerned us. First is the cost. The cost of running examination in this country, just like the cost of running elections in this country, is not tenable. And it is exaggerated. And the Ministry of Education has also acknowledged that, and they are working on it. I want to also say that we have a strong feeling, especially from the National Treasury, that it was not right to pay school examination for all the children of Kenya. It is not right. You subsidize people who cannot. You don't subsidize everybody. My child also does exams. Why should the government pay for my child examination fee? I can afford it. So if we could have a system where those who cannot, the indigents, can be paid for, because we can't run a welfare state. We don't have that capacity to run a welfare state. Look at how much we spend now on cash transfers, which we must, because those people are elderly, they're sick, and then we spend 44 billion per year. We have all these capitations and the rest. So examination, it was the view of which we presented to the cabinet as a National Treasury, that we want this matter to be looked into. But then, again, you will serve Kenyans. And as at now, we are going to pay examination fee to all the children. But it is a conversation. We need to engage in this conversation. Do we really have the capacity to be paying everything for our children? You want capitation in schools? Full. You want examination to be paid for everybody, including the child of the president, if he was going to do exam. And we want also health to be catered for, and we want security. I have heard people say that why are we putting so much money in security? Are we at war? We have been at war in this country with Al-Shabaab. Either we keep them there, or they come and fight us on our soil. And I want to say that we are in a place you cannot compare with some countries. We are in a place, we are neighboring volatile states, both sides, apart from Tanzania, and maybe now Uganda. All the other regions are volatile. So we need security. Without security, even this education we are talking about would collapse. If we are stuck here just one day, there is no tourism anymore. The coast economy is gone. So we must also support security. And now the last one, MP for Luanda. And now, let me finish this, then maybe if there is any supplementary, because I think now I have less than 5 minutes. The certificate given by National Assembly needs to be respected. And by the way, my colleague will respond. Exchequer requests to National Treasury has itemized budget. Once that money is released to the ministry, it should be spent or expended that way. In fact, the Auditor General may have problems if it is spent otherwise. I am not saying that I have evidence that it has been spent otherwise. But if that is the case, but one thing that I want to also request the National Assembly is kindly budget for education. Even if you are going to allocate to some schools, also leave some for the national government. Because again, if National Assembly appropriates everything, and we have a policy ministry here, also which has the overview of the whole country. If we can strike that balance, because I think we have not struck that balance. The executive feels, National Assembly, you should have nothing to do. National Assembly also feels that we should have everything to do with it. Why don't we strike a balance and have a system, because you are also people's representatives, where allocations are done, but also an amount is left for the line ministry, also to take care of schools that may not afford.
Chair.
Finally,
Chair, maybe that one.
Finally,
yes,
let me just finish this. Then, now, finally, on cartels in my ministry.
On that one. Says just allow him a rider, a brief one.
Yes. Yeah, that was my question, and I think what you observed is right. But allow me also notify you that at the point of approving the budget, not all the money was allocated. A pool of that figure was left to the line ministries. Not 1.39 billion was allocated. This committee is a committee of wise men and women. And you are aware presidential declarations are done from which that pool should cater for the same. So I can assure you out of 1.39, a good amount of it was left in a pool which has been misappropriated or misallocated, or the cartels took charge to an extent that even presidential declarations could not be serviced. So this committee left the budget.
I'll actually leave that to my colleague, because what we do at the National Treasury, when the requests come, we disburse. It is now the line ministry that disburses the money. Finally, on the existence of cartels in my ministry, do I support my technical staff? We do. And we even offer training. We have recruited professional staff. We have them. Whether there are cartels, we will deal with those cartels. In everyday working, you meet people who have different interests, apart from what brings them to the office. Whenever we identify that, we will deal with. I would guarantee you that I would not allow any cartel in my ministry who is existing with my knowledge. And if we catch or we get any cartel, we'll deal. But I don't think my PS is a cartel. You know, I've worked with my PS. You know, I'm responding to that because you see.
CS, I would like to disregard that part. He is not here.
And by the way, you didn't even mention which one. So let me leave it there.
That one.
I have 3 PSS, so let me leave it there. But thank you, Chair. If you allow me, I would request
Chair, I wanted to get my thoughts on the funding of
Honorable Boko, I have not given you a chance to speak, but you're already on the mic. I would allow much more just a brief one.
Chair, just a fairly brief one. I like your view, your knowledge of securitization, but for a typical Kenyan, would prefer the cost of that finance to be to the very best, not beyond the level of annual inflation. That's all I'll leave to you.
Chair, I want
to go ahead and respond to that.
No, very brief also, because I want you to also get the thoughts of where the payment of examination fees came from. The years about 2000 thereabouts, many students from poor families were not doing exams, and they would fall out at class 8 CS. And when we did get the new constitution 2010, education, when you check in the Constitution, especially basic education, is not only supposed to be free, basic, but is supposed to be compulsory. So it's from that basis of many children, of the poor, not you and me, missing exams and dropping out of school, that policy came in force. So as you retire back to your office, think of the poor people who are not able to pay when we remove it, not ourselves who are able to pay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mheshimiwa. Honorable Lacha, a brief one, kindly.
Thank you, Chair. Mine is just to request, and I'm hoping also CS Mbadi will help the Ministry in line of education, that you see all this we are talking, we have no data of these learnings. We are just saying 3 million. Can we have every child with a name so that we know this data properly? And that is the day we'll start knowing how much this ministry needs.
That will be for
I think the question by Honorable Lechi, the minister here is very able. I had him mention it. But now on the issue, I'm not saying we are stopping paying examination fees. We were trying to reevaluate and pay for only those who need to be paid for. But as it is today, we are going to pay again examination fee for everyone. But there's that conversation, and that will be part of the conversation. On Honorable Undo, I agree it comes from within. That comes to securitization. It's a global thing. In fact, we don't want to crowd out our local. Most of the securitization, we are very clear. Not more than 20% should come from the local market. 80% outside. Because if we crowd out the private sector here by borrowing locally, too much is very fluid. In this country, inflation even reached 9.6. Now, it could be low by tomorrow. So you want to allow this to the market dynamics and just negotiate, because we also negotiate these prices. We have the leader, Rangers, who does due diligence, and we get people, the reputable firms. We use Citigroup, we use Standard, we use TDB to do some of these arrangements. So it is professionally done. And Honorable Ondo, you have not visited me in my office since I left you in Park. You could come and we have a cup of tea and a conversation on some of these things. And you add your thoughts. You could also enrich my thoughts. Thank you very much.
Thank you, CS.
Before just one, and because
we have to allow the minister. I think
just the information.
No, I don't think he needs to be informed. CS.
I think you should.
No, let CS. I've not released you, but you are leaving. Thank you for your time. And on the matter of exam fee, kindly pay exam fee for the children you capitate. You cannot capitate for 3 million and pay exam for 4 million. I think you get my line of thought. Thank you. You are free to leave. Honorable members, remain behind. Don't follow. CS, kindly do not attend to them. We need the sitting to continue. Honorable Undo, I hope you are not coming back.
I'm coming back.
Thank you, members. Now we proceed to the CS Education.
Honorable Chair, there was a specific question I asked after Mbadi had indicated that he's paying 16,000 per student. And I asked the CS Education that why is he then reducing the money by 5,000?
I think that's part of his questions that he's supposed to respond
to.
Thank you. CS. CS, I'd like you to briefly go through the questions that may have touched on you, because after that, we do have specific members who had questions directed to your ministry, who are not members of the education, what the CS Treasury.
Thank you, Chair. I think what I will do, I will not attempt to continue answering questions that have already been answered, including the issues with capitation and the shortfalls of the budget and what we receive, but I'm going to answer the ones that are left, that, for example, what Honorable Mboko has asked about the fact that if we received 16,000 as opposed to 22,000, but we still released 10,000 to the schools. The information I have is that part of the 1,700 or something that you indicated that is retained in the ministry caters for textbook funding, co-curricular activities, issues to do with the semester, etc., etc. and there is an issue there relating to part of that money being used also for infrastructure. That is a part of the money that, for example, is used for what we could call desk or equipment or something like that in that space. But what I would like to do, Honorable Mboko, because that's a very important question, I would like to go and have that question addressed specifically so that we have clear figures on the last maybe 3 years. This is the amount that was received, this is the amount that went to the schools, and this is the amount that was retained and for what it was retained, so that members can have a clear picture of what we have. And
yes. Bwana Cabinet Secretary, as you prepare that statement from the head office, please also go down to the very grassroots and find out how much of that money that ends up in the schools that's taken by the sub-county education office, the county education office, and the regional education office for some very frivolous and some inaugurating the boards. When the quality assurance people are going over, there is a brown envelope to be given. Please break it down so that we know exactly how much is actually left for the Kenyan child.
Chair, to enrich the answer you'll be bringing, and this is just very briefly, Chair, thank you for that.
I would like us to avoid that back and forth. So that
education office for some very frivolous and some inaugurating the boards. When the quality assurance people are going over, there is a brown envelope to be given. Please break it down so that we know exactly how much is actually left for the Kenyan child.
Chair, to enrich the answer you'll be bringing, and this is just very briefly, Chair, thank you for that.
I would like us to avoid that back and forth so that we make progress kindly, because remember, at 2:30 we have a sitting.
Just one thing, that of the monies that have been deducted from the 16,000, so said, and this should interest you, Chair, and the current Education Committee is doing very marvelously, that you have voted for infrastructure, which Honorable, my colleague from Luanda, talked about very well. Are you aware that there's now this infrastructure being taken from every child? So you should follow it up to see how is it accounted for. Thank you.
Yes. I'm very, very well guided. And let me just assure members that as a ministry, we are committed to ensuring that these resources are actually utilized for the purpose for which they are given. And if we need to be able to come back here and request for a special audit to be formed, whatever the cost, so that we go through these figures and we find out where the pain points are and what the solutions are, we are prepared to do that. We are not in support of any cartel. We will not support any officer who is not doing what they are supposed to do, because it makes our work very, very difficult. So I assure you that what we are going to do going forward, and in fact that is the reason, and I could answer Elachi's question on this issue of numbers, that is the reason where we are moving from NEMIS to KEMIS, because NEMIS was discovered to be a system that was not serving the children. The NEMIS was not working. For example, it was based on the fact that you have to have a birth certificate for you to be able to be registered. But you did not require a birth certificate for you to be able to be admitted to class. So how could we have an admission to class without a birth certificate? But then we put in a system that requires you to have a birth certificate to be registered in the NEMIS, which gave you the right to be entitled to resources from the government. So there was a discrepancy. And because this system was not working, we've come now up with the system of KEMIS, which NEMIS or KEMIS captures children given birth to this country as 1 million. Who will know that we'll go to grade 1 in 3 years? In that 3 years, we cannot have 1.5 million children going to class, because where did the 500 come from? So with that system, then we are able to follow through and we'll be able to make decisions based on that data. In fact, it will erase all these issues of fake schools, it will erase all these issues of ghost schools, it will erase all these systems of monies maybe going to places that we do not know, because the system will be one. There will be a dashboard, and that dashboard would require to be even connected to here in Parliament, so that you can walk into the office, press a button and see how many students do we have in Kenya today. We'll be able to link that system to the financial year vis-a-vis the academic year. We have a financial year that is between June of the previous year and June this year. We have an academic year that is